This is season 2, episode 25 of the Faith Over Breakfast podcast.
Good morning and welcome to Faith Over Breakfast. My name is Andy Littleton. I'm the pastor of Mission Church in Tucson, Arizona, and I'm sitting down to impromptu breakfast with my buddy Eric behind a microphone. Somehow, we ended up in a recording studio. How did that happen?
I have no idea.
You went to Chick-fil-A, you got the sandwich, you time warped, here you are, and amazing.
And we did a short podcast.
It didn't end up being that short.
Well, 30 minutes is short for us. We usually hit the
35 going on 36.
Yeah, okay.
Eric, good morning.
Good morning.
You have Chick-fil-A.
I have Chick-fil-A. Oh, man, it was a crazy day. Or it's not even a day yet.
Crinkle.
Listen to it.
Yeah. Dude,
wow.
Yeah, so this is actually Faith Over Breakfast.
It is Faith for me from probably like the first time.
Yeah, for
in a really long time.
Oh, you got that chicken biscuit. What's going on, man? Why are you in such a fluster?
Well, it's raining.
Does that just change everything for you?
I left my charger at home. I needed to
Was
go
your phone dead this morning?
Make sure the heater was turned on for my meeting because I didn't really anticipate it being cold.
Oh.
And so then I hadn't had breakfast because I don't know. We went to Starbucks, and I don't really like eating at Starbucks. So.
No? What's the problem with eating at Starbucks?
I don't know. It's just mostly sugar. I mean, and their sandwiches, I don't know. I just can't handle their sandwiches. I don't like them.
Okay. Yeah. So you went to Chick-fil-A like a good pastor.
Yeah, I haven't been to Chick-fil-A in a long time. This is probably not the best thing either, but here we go.
Yeah, I think this stuff is actually infused with crack. Yeah, because I keep coming back. I don't know. Anyway, let's hope for the best. Let's hope it's just sugar infused chicken. There's something in there. Anyway, hey man.
Hey, good to see you.
So we're even less queued up than usual, but that's okay because our concept here is when pastors sit down for breakfast and talk, this is what you get. And guess what? Sometimes they're running behind because they had to go turn the heater on because that's what happens in small churches where you don't have a janitor.
Yeah, well, that and
anything else.
When you have, a regular homeless guy who is now part of your church, and you're going to have meetings with people who are going to feel very awkward with a homeless guy showing up. They're sitting in the front. I need to also make sure his stuff was moved and he wasn't there.
Yeah, this is regular for us.
Yes. Yeah, you know it more than we do.
Yeah.
But
a regular homeless guy as opposed to irregular homeless guy? Okay, well, hey man, that's the life. So I threw a topic out to you. Haven't heard back, so I'm just gonna see. We're just gonna do it. We're gonna do it right now. So I was.
But you talk first.
Me talk. Yeah, you seem to have.
You tell me about this question and how it applies to you.
Yeah, so that you can eat your sandwich. Yeah, so I was thinking it'd be interesting to hear from you when you have doubts about faith. What are the things that cause you to doubt? And then when you feel like your faith is, strengthened, what are the types of things that strengthen it? And I mean, I'm assuming that it'd be helpful for people to hear that we deal with these things. And then also an assumption I have is that these things, it's very different for somebody, the thing that throws them into an existential crisis, doesn't affect another person at all, and the thing that would throw me into a crisis of faith might, to somebody else, they go, that's no problem.
Well, I'm going to do something that you do to me.
Are you? Good.
So could you explain existential?
Yeah. No, actually I can't. Because existential isn't a church-only word. I make you do that for church-only words. It's not a church-only word.
But a lot of people don't know what it means.
Yeah, well, I mean... So, I don't have a technical definition for you. But I would say, what does this mean? Is there any meaning to this? A crisis of, why am I here? What does this mean? Sure. Yeah.
Sounds good.
Then there's existentialism, and that's a whole other thing. Shout out to Miss Walker, high school English, for making me watch the movie Bean there and think about that. So, but anyway, yeah, that's what I wanted to talk about. You with me?
Yeah, I'm with you.
Okay.
That was a really good sandwich.
Yeah, you crushed that. You ate at an Andy pace.
Yes, I did eat.
That's how I eat a sandwich right there.
That was good.
Yeah. And it's way better when you don't chew.
Yeah, I don't chew.
Just it's like a snake.
It is.
You just take that mouse down whole.
Right. Well, I feel like
later.
Last week I talked a lot about what I was thinking about things, and so I kind of would like to hear, at least to start out by hearing your kind of doubt and faith. Like where does that come from? How does that happen for you?
Yeah. And I'm not coming to this with I purposely didn't, work this out. So I think the times, and this is just so true to my story in general, but the times when I probably practically doubt God the most are when I feel like everything is on my shoulders. And I'll have a thought and I'll think, isn't God supposed to be involved in my life? Like, don't I think that? Isn't that what I believe? And then I'll think, yeah, it doesn't seem like it though. Like it doesn't seem like if I were to trust God with this, that anything would change. And then I give myself this little talk about human responsibility and yada, yada, yada. And look, man, you got to get up and do your stuff, and God's involved in that. And I kind of keep pushing through it. But I think those are moments where I really,
And would you say that you're doubting the existence of God?
Yeah.
Okay, so it's not doubt. It's not a doubt of his involvement, but an actual doubt, of his existence.
I mean, in those moments, I don't take that next step and try to figure that out. Okay. But I would venture to say that it is a evidence of a doubt, within me that this is even real, that there's even anything to this, that there's anything more at all, actually. When I go there, that's part of it. And then, yeah, but I mean, I don't know, but it could be that I think there's a God who just doesn't care about me, but I don't know. I might venture to say, like, on days like that, it's, if I were really to sit down and plow into that and go, where am I at right now? Like, do I actually think there's a God? Because I think I tend to say in my mind, if there's a God, it would be an involved God. Okay. I don't know that I'm ever tempted to think there's a God who's just sitting on the couch. I don't know, personally.
That makes sense.
Okay. Yeah. So how about you?
Doubts. When do I face doubts about God's existence?
You're like, not me. I'm good.
When it comes to the existence of God, I would say no, because I've spent a long time processing through what life means with a lot of people and having to wrestle with it philosophically. And the conclusion that I have come to, both through experience and through what seems to be logical, is that God makes more sense than no God.
Okay, I'm going to call a timeout here. You're jumping to the second part of the question. You got to give...
Oh, I will.
Okay.
So, but for me, that's the foundation. So then where does the doubt come from?
Okay.
Well, the doubt settles more in how that God involves himself with us.
So you're more on the other end of the spectrum, where it's like the existence of God, sure, no problem.
Right. Well, because I think we tend to shape our understanding of God from our parents, or from the lack thereof, or some parental figure.
And you've never doubted that your parents existed.
Yes, I haven't doubted that existence. But I think we shape our understanding of how God relates to us. Yeah. And for me, it's always been, I have to do X, Y, and Z, and then God will involve himself with me. Yeah. And so I think my doubt is usually about myself and how good I am. Like, I have a hard time believing that God will involve himself in a way where it's going to be beneficial to me.
Yeah.
Unless I am doing the exact things that I'm supposed to be doing.
And that's interesting, because I don't have that piece. Right. And I agree with you, though. I really do agree that we the home that we are shaped in forms how we think about this. And so there was the unconditional love piece for me was there. That was there. It was, so I never at home like assumed that I had to perform in a certain way to be loved.
And I would actually agree with you. I also have that experience.
You have that, yeah. So what's
So I think you probably have the same thing I do. You just say it differently, and that is when you feel like everything's on your shoulders, when you feel full responsibility for things. I think the thing that I would add is I always knew my parents loved me, but I was only going to get certain benefits and certain, like, you know, the things that I wanted to happen if I did it right, or I did what I was told to do, or, you know, I followed the right path.
See, this is where our parents probably are different.
Yeah.
So, and you don't know mine, I do know yours.
Yeah, unfortunately.
Which is so I've experienced, you know, counseling under your parents and leadership of events and stuff under your parents. And so I can imagine, though it's different than being their kid, but I'm thinking, so when I hear that, I believe that, right? Like,
right.
I believe like high, like, I mean, your parents, the expectations are high. Like,
right. Yes. Holiness is a big deal for my parents.
Right. And I don't think they would ever, you know, go against the gospel as they would, you know, in that,
No.
but they have a high standard, which is sometimes helpful. But like my parents, I did know, and this was on the flip side, like had its problems, that like if I went and did terrible things or I didn't deserve something at all, I might still get it. Chances are, like, and I don't want to, they disciplined me. I don't want to say like it was all or nothing here, but I'm saying generally,
sure,
they would lean toward forgiveness and they would lean toward accepting no matter what. You know, like, I mean, one time my mom spanked me and cried and gave me a hug and said she was sorry, which looking back on, like, that's silly. Like, spank the kid and let it be, you know, like, or whatever, set him in the corner, whatever you do, like, do it and don't apologize for it.
Right. That's probably not the best.
No, not at all. Because it made me realize I could just do what I wanted and get away with it. And that didn't work for me in the rest of the world. So God had to teach me that somewhere else.
Right.
But so you knew you were loved, but you might not be, but you might get a heavy thing placed on you if you didn't do X, Y, and Z.
Right, and it's not even just the shaping of that through my parents. It was what they taught me about God, and I think what I would say is that theologically, my parents were much more God-centric in their, or Father-centric in their theology, and maybe even more Old Testament in their understanding of who God was. And not necessarily a Christocentric, though I'm not that they didn't believe in Jesus and grace and all those things, but just the way they shaped and formed their understanding of God came much more through a father-like form.
Yeah.
And so
Father, authority, creator.
Yes. Those are big.
Those paradigms, which are
good paradigms.
Good paradigms, yeah.
But
there's more
not necessarily always helpful if you don't view them through Christ.
Yeah.
And as so anyway, so when my doubts come, it's usually me thinking, oh, I messed this all up, and this is why bad things are happening.
Yeah.
This is why this person's doing this. This is why, you know, I'm in this place that I'm in. Like, I'm fully responsible for my destiny, and I messed it up, and there's no fixing it.
Yeah.
And so I think those are when I want to be like, what the heck, you know?
Yeah.
The other part of the doubts that I have is where I end up in doubts is when, and I've just realized this recently, is when theology, in particular, I'm in the world of Reformed theology, becomes a God where it's believed to be right. And so, you know, I heard somebody comment in a meeting recently that they told someone that Reformed life it's a way of living. And the implications of that is almost as if Reformed thinking was above Christ thinking, you know, in the sense of, and for me, I started when I'm like, okay, well, God, if somebody's figured out God so well,
right,
then I start worrying because I'm like, wow, like I don't feel that comfortable with all of this, and is this really the way things work? And And then I get a little...
Like if I don't have it that figured out?
Yes, like how is it...
So it's subtly like you're kind of probably annoyed with the person that says they have it all figured out, but then sort of uncomfortable with the fact that you can't be that confident.
Right. Huh. Yeah. But, I mean, for me, like, I know that I don't doubt the existence of God. I don't doubt that Scripture is inspired. I don't ever have those. I think I might think about those terms differently than other people do, but I don't doubt them.
Right.
And I've had genuine experiences that I can attribute to something beyond myself. And
yeah, so for you, a confirmation, like something that builds your faith, are experiences that come across as being other than this world.
Yes. And yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna say, yeah, like on the parents thing. One more thing before we move on to that, what kind of builds our faith. My dad, I realized, and I talked with him more specifically about this later in his life, but he didn't shy away from saying he wasn't always sure about God.
Hmm.
And so I actually appreciate that, because he never, the interesting thing is some people do that, and I think the minute they get there and they go, maybe there's not a God, they stop trying, or they decide to go off into some behavior that they wanted to do actually.
Right.
And to me that doesn't smack of
anything genuine.
That's like just rebellious, But with my dad, he was faithful to seek out the word. He was faithful to gather, with the church. Even though I have a sneaky suspicion he didn't feel like doing it very often.
Right.
He really sought, like there were some really key moments in my life where I could tell he was saying, I want to do what the Bible's told me to do instead of doing it this other way.
Right.
But I, one time I just asked him directly, I said, do you feel sure about God? And he'd just go, oh, no. Sometimes I wonder if it's all true. Like it would, to his kid who he wanted to, I'm sure he wanted to be a good dad and wanted to lead me well, but he didn't hide that. He would just be
sure.
Like, yeah, that's the thing. So, I guess, yeah, maybe that's why I've always felt like that was an okay thing to feel. Right. To not be sure, to not walk around going like, I know. Like, so if if in a moment I'm like, I don't know right now, that doesn't feel catastrophic.
Sure.
To me. Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, I think a lot of people doubt, because they don't have an experience. They don't feel like they hear from God.
Sure.
Or they find themselves in immense suffering, and they're trying to figure out why a God who apparently is all love and kindness would allow them in particular to suffer, or people around them to suffer, for them to experience loss. Like, this broken world produces a lot of doubt about a good God.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Well, then it could be, and I've, known a lot of folks who say, it's not God, is the God good?
Right.
Or what was the part you opened with there? Like the before you were saying God is good, what were you saying? Because there's for people who think they heard God or had an experience, and it turns out it doesn't go well.
Right.
Like, God told me to date this person, and the person's a psychopath.
Right.
So then you
or
start
God
questioning,
said he was going to save somebody, and he didn't, from being sick.
Or he was going to heal them, or And I that's one I've heard a lot. That's one that makes me nervous. That's honestly, like, because I've seen a lot of that because of the circles I grew up in, where people came around and went, God said my life was going to be better, and it got worse, and you go, where did he say that? Well, he just told me this one time in prayer, and you go, what about like where the Bible said through many sufferings we enter the kingdom? Does that factor in, or does the prayer trump that?
Or in this world you will have troubles.
Yeah, or does the feeling trump that? So that's one I get hung up on, and I'm sure that's
Well, it's interesting to me because, like, for the reason that I think I don't now have many doubts is because I've expanded the way I understand that God speaks.
Okay.
But at the same time, I haven't expanded it to God told me
Yeah.
outside of the narrow understanding of what Scripture already tells me about who I am.
Right.
So instead, I have moved to a place where I look for God in the world and through people and through the miraculous to tell me that He loves me, to tells me that I'm His son,
Right.
that I'm a priest, to like affirm the identities that are extremely clear in Scripture.
Right. Sure.
I look for that in a broader sense than I used to look for it.
Yeah.
You know, and so I mean,
but you don't expect. But then, if you have a sense that you suck, which I sense that sometimes.
Yes.
And you go, that doesn't align. Like God doesn't say that. Like the way I would say it to people is recognizing the voice of God by seeing it in the Scriptures, and then when you hear a thing in your spirit or you sense a thing, you can go, is that the God I know? Is that the God in the Scriptures? And does He say? He would say He would discipline you. He would say that was wrong, but He wouldn't say you suck.
Right.
And I could, so many ways I could prove that in the Bible, right?
Well, and at the same time, Rod always says, my co-pastor, and I think it's important, is that if you have doubt, you have faith. If you have no doubt, you have no faith.
Right, because the one who's engaging in doubt is engaging with a real person,
right.
A real relationship. It's not just no problem, right. Sure, why not? Yeah.
So I have doubt.
Yeah.
It's just maybe I don't have doubt about the existence of God.
Right.
Because I've come to a place where if there is no God, I just really don't want to live.
Yeah.
Like, to me, that makes no sense. And so that part I don't doubt. Now, working that out, that's where all the doubts of how those things play themselves out. I get, because we all have the dark night of the soul, and the enemy continually accuses us and accuses God.
Yes.
And,
sure.
And so it's difficult.
So when you feel, for you, when it feels like, you have a day where you're just like, I feel like I was with God today. Like what happened on that? What kind of things?
Well, I could actually talk about that happened this week in a pretty dramatic way.
Yeah.
So, being a pastor, as you well know, is hard.
Right.
And the way that I tend to pastor and the way we planted the village makes my life relatively transparent. And
right.
And I don't always have a day off on my day off. And and that's not to say I don't create boundaries, but over the last few weeks, maybe month, I have had this increasing burden and where I have just the things that are happening in my church, the things that are just happening in my life with my wife and her dad in the hospital for now 23 days, and just the burden that places on our home and on her heart and on the whole family's heart. Like, you just get weight, you feel that weight. This is the heaviness of life, and to the point where you're like, yeah, I believe in God, but I don't want to do this anymore. I don't want to do the calling of God anymore. Like, I'm done with this.
Sure.
I maybe somebody else needs to do this that's better at it or who has more capacity. And so, Ash Wednesday was coming up.
Yeah.
And we had our Ash Wednesday service, and it was an interesting experience because it was a fun, as fun as Ash Wednesday can be,
hoot.
Yeah, well, it's really difficult for Ash Wednesday at our church to be as somber as one might hope with a bunch of kids. But it's a very powerful moment to put the sign of the cross on little children. Yeah. But I didn't have any dramatic experience in Ash Wednesday. But I went home, and that burden, which was extremely heavy, was completely gone. Yeah. And part of it, I think, was as I was weighing with that burden, I had chosen to, with Lent, for those who know what Lent is, it's 40 days before Easter with Sundays.
Not when somebody borrows something from you.
No.
No.
And so you fast something and you add something usually. You fast something that's taking up time so that you can fill that time with a focus on Easter, on your own sin, on Christ's sacrifice for you, and the hope of the resurrection. but I think I was wrestling with God more than I realized about giving up things, because I had gone to the place where my burden was so much that I had these things in my life, like I'm giving up watching TV, and it was so much. I think it had become so much a thing in my life to like, oh, I need this to like kind of tune out of what's happening in my life.
Yeah.
It had become that mechanism, and I felt like I was saying, "You don't need that," and I was like, "Yes, I do." And it had become, and there's some other things that I was going to give up along with it that were more private in my heart, and I was just like, "I don't want to give these up.
Yeah.
I don't want to do this." Like I was having this battle, and then when Ash Wednesday, it was as I didn't give them up. God just scooped them away. I went home and I was like, "Huh, like this is completely gone." Like it just lifted off of me in a way that I could not do. So for me, that was a very dramatic experience, because it was like the service was over. I walked home. We went home, and the burden was gone, and I was happy. It was, and it was a beautiful picture to me, the way God lifts our sin and brokenness off of us. When we're like the man who brought his son to Jesus, and where he says, I believe. Please help my unbelief. Like it's like my actions say I believe. My heart's like, this is not.
Yeah.
This is not. I can't do this.
Yeah.
And I think that was a big moment for me recently. So that deepens my faith and gets me excited that God's involved in my life.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, for sure.
How about you? What kind of builds your faith?
Yeah, I think it's been a lot more the little things lately. It used to be I'd want some, I don't know, something big or
like a lightning bolt.
But no, I'm kind of scared of those. I don't know what, like something big. I mean, somebody comes to Jesus and it's dramatic.
Right.
That used to be the kind of thing that I would be like, oh, it's happening. And now I've realized even that, that I don't know what's going to be the end result of that. Like the big dramatic thing that's, and somebody might double back on that. So I've put less stock in those big events. And I've also seen a lot of the best change that happens in people has been slow, nothing crazy. It's a little bit of both, I guess. But yeah, just little things like where I've realized, sometimes it's like the world is awfully dark, actually, and the world, just our life, our existence, and really, like there's got to be, if there isn't a hope behind all this, this is just kind of, why are we doing this, kind of thing. And I'll think there must be more. There must be more, and that's faith strengthening for me to have those thoughts. And then little things like seeing something really beautiful. I mean, just an experience of like just enjoying someone's presence and going, you know what, like this seems bigger than just natural selection or whatever. Like, why is it that we connect with people and that we love and that we care, and like that's the science hasn't explained that away, and I'll just have, it'll just be little moments like that, of little simple things where I'll just go, God, this is just screaming that you, the you I've heard of, that the good Creator, the loving Father are here. Sometimes just stuff like that. I remember one time John Piper saying, don't ever miss a tree, and I miss a lot of trees, but his point was like just how cool they are, just
right.
And that was encouraging to me, just to think, like I don't want to miss like all the really cool, beautiful things, the hummingbird that zooms by, or I don't know. So every once in a while, one of those will catch me, and I don't know, just kind of my faith is strengthened.
Yes, beauty,
a little.
Intricacy of God's creation.
Something good.
Yeah.
And it doesn't mean I'm not noticing the bad, because of both of those things are kind of the tension of the two, I think, strengthens my faith, interestingly enough.
Yeah. That's so I think one of the things that's underlying in your two statements that you texted me about, like what where do I have doubts and what builds my faith, is ultimately what motivates all of us, and Scripture's pretty clear about this, is our fears. And so, I mean, there is a fear, like, does God really exist? There's
what
a
if he doesn't?
fear,
What if, yeah.
and
what
we're
if this
all
doesn't mean
alone.
anything, actually?
Yeah, and then you're just kind of, you've become the center, and you're scrambling to kind of
Right.
keep yourself in an equilibrium, or just get out of this world because it makes no sense. And a lot of that has to do with the fear of suffering, or your suffering getting worse, or your loneliness intensifying, and
Fear of being found out.
yeah, there's a lot of that going on when it comes to doubt. It's not just like some rational, I doubt because we've lined up all the facts, and
Yes.
there are more facts on this side than the other one, or there are
Right.
more good ideas, so therefore I doubt that God exists. It's much more.
Usually there's you go to that, the rationality stuff follows the other question, right?
Yeah. I mean, for me to, when I think
fear.
about what strengthens my faith more than anything, is the active presence of Christ in his church.
Mm-hmm.
I think sitting here and talking to you back and forth about our experiences over the last year and a half is a faith-strengthening
Right.
event for me.
Right.
Because I have seen the presence of God show up in our podcast. Like,
Yeah.
we've made room for him to show up, and he has. And I think it's had an impact on people and on me. And, I can just go from experience after experience within my own community,
Right.
where I'm like, oh, the presence of God is here. Like, it's like the promise that where two or three are gathered, there I am. Like, that's a powerful thing. Like,
Yeah.
and you experience it.
Yeah.
And so it doesn't necessarily remove all my emotional fear and doubt, but it definitely comforts me and directs me.
Yeah.
It's a big deal.
Absolutely. Well, I'm going to call it because
You got to go.
Well, I think I do. I'm supposed to have to go.
What time are we
I'll
at?
be double checking, but we've been at this we're going to be about 32 minutes.
32 minutes.
That ain't bad. So,
Before we close,
yeah.
I just had a couple. Well, we got an email.
Oh, we did.
And I got a lot of responses from my community.
Uh-huh.
And so when I say a lot of responses, I got 3 responses, which means no responses usually come. So 3 is a lot. I mean,
triple.
in the sense about directly like what they liked about the podcast. A lot of people say, hey, I listened to your podcast. That was good. But
a lot meaning 2 of 3. And
Yeah.
then there was one that said more.
yeah. No, 3 people commented they really liked us saying what we were reading.
Oh.
Because that was really, really helpful.
Okay.
And then I had a thought that I thought maybe we could do live about, like, to promote next week's podcast, to see what you thought about it. Because Desiring God had a really interesting article on the new Marvel movie.
I actually saw that.
And it's created a lot of controversy and a lot of people frustrated with what was said in it. And so I thought it would be interesting for us to give our opinion, because it addresses issues that you and I tend to address in this podcast.
Okay, well, was it called "Behold Your Queen"?
Yes, it was "Behold Your Queen." So if you want to read it before we talk about it, that would be cool.
I actually did read it, and it
awesome. Me too.
And it was I would be happy to explore it, because I kind of walked away going, it wasn't the typical Desiring God.
No,
article.
It was not. It was almost like a Babylon Bee Desiring God article, a little bit.
There was
sure. Some of that.
Yeah, let's go for it.
Awesome. I don't know. What are you reading right now?
Right now,
Mm-hmm.
I'm reading a children's book.
Awesome. What is it?
The Iron Man. It's the book that inspired the movie The Iron Giant, because we are doing the Iron Giant as a movie night at our church. So I wanted to read the book that inspired it.
Cool.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And it's interesting.
Cool. So if we're going nonfiction or fiction instead of nonfiction, my family is reading a book by N.D. Wilson.
N.D. Wilson.
N.D. Wilson is the son of a very famous Reformed Wilson.
Oh, sure.
Yes. And he is
the
Doug Wilson.
He is
yes.
a hyper-reformed Wilson.
Yes. And his son is a pretty sweet writer. Like, he writes some amazing books. But right now we are reading a book, and it is, oh goodness, it is in his time travel series. And it has a kid who has 2 snake arms.
Whoa.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. And his name is Sam, and I don't quite remember. It's the name of the book, but it's the third one in this series of time travelers.
I'll bet if he's anything like his father, he's a great writer. So Doug Wilson, for all of his potential excesses and people's critiques of him, the dude can write.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. No, they're all He's a very, very good writer.
Yeah.
And I was gonna just quick, since we are.
While you're looking.
Here we are. It is
Okay.
Outlaws of Time, the last of the internet. Internet slow.
Oh no.
Slow internet. Slow internet. Still loading.
In the nonfiction category, I've just waded into Little Lamb Who Made Thee by Walter Wangerin. That's the other book I'm reading, but I've just started.
That's interesting. This still won't give me the title, but you can get it. You can work out the title. Outlaws of Time, number 3, the last of the ...
Dun, 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 dun. All right.
It's very good. I recommend all his books, and he's theologically not in the same place his father is, but still Reformed.
Interesting.
So very interesting.
All right. Well, signing off. Thanks for joining me, man.
Yeah.